Hey guys, welcome to the second episode of Against All Odds. I'm Luis, the host, and this is Bernardo Mendoza. Bernardo and I have known each other for a few years. We met at Diaz Foods when we were working in accounts receivable a few years back. Bernardo is a staff accountant at EY, Ernst& Young, a CPA, well, just passed a CPA, now just waiting on the license. He's a master's in accounting and also a homeowner in the U.S. and has two real estate properties in Colombia, all by the age of 23, before the age of 23. So he's accomplished much in such a short time, and that's why partly why he's on, and another part is because he's awesome. And but I want to know, Bernardo's from Colombia, and we want to take it back to where it all started. So can you tell me about how where this all began? Like how you got to the States, and you seem to accomplished so much and just been focused, and you're still doing a lot of things. You have an organization you started a year ago called Latina,
Mhm.
and from what I understand, you're going to have an event in Colombia in a week or so, something like that.
Yeah. Uh, well, first I'll probably start, in Colombia. I moved to the U.S. 6 years ago.
Mm.
Growing up in Colombia, my parents were always very like entrepreneur. So they had a rental property. So we had like our house, and there was like a couple of apartments and commercial property that we rented out. And so since I was little, I always saw them, like collecting payments and looking for tenants and just the whole management process.
Mm.
And I've always been good at math, so that was always something that I kept like in the back of my head. Like I like business, I like money, and I like just being involved with like people and doing deals and things like that. Um, so when I graduated school back in Colombia, that was in 2012. Um, about a year before that, my parents told us that we have been approved the residence card. One of my uncles, he has been living in the U.S. for over 25 years now, and
Mm.
he basically requested my dad's side of the family to come live here. So that process took over 10 years. I didn't even know about it until like 2011 when we found out that it was
ten,
approved.
10 years.
Um,
Mm.
and it was right at that point, when you're like deciding what college you want to go to, like what career you're gonna pick. So it all became kind of like a huge mess or like uncertain time in my life. Um,
Can you tell me how old were you at that time?
so I was 15 years old at the time. So, uh,
15 with all that pressure. How did was that difficult? How did you deal with that, or how did you feel about
um,
that?
yeah. So like when we found out I was 15, that was 2011 because I graduated in 2012, and normally you graduate at 16 years old in Colombia. Um, just finding out it was a big shock, but at the same time, my dad always told us, like is how you look at things. And I always try to think about, the positive side. I was like, yeah, I'm leaving my friends, I'm leaving, my mom's side of the family, we're
Mm.
still all in Colombia. Um, but I thought about, like the opportunities that I was gonna have here. And not only that, but I was back in those days, I was like the tech savvy in my family. So I ended up actually filling out all the applications for the rest of my family members. So not only like my parents, but like uncles, cousins, all of them. So that was a big learning process because I studied English for like a year before we
Mm.
came to the U.S. But all these applications, were in English, and most of the language, is sometimes advanced. They're asking you questions like about your background and
Yeah.
things that I have not seen before.
It sounds like a
Um,
lot for a 15, 16-year-old to do.
yeah, but that's what you get when you're sitting on the computer a lot. So they assume you know everything. So there I was trying to help my family figure this out. So um, and yeah, after that, there was a kind of like a difficult time because I got dengue, which is the one of the mosquito.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I got that in 2013. It was around the time that we were moving to the US.
Gotcha.
And I was in the hospital for 3 or 4 weeks. Like it was bad. I mean, it was like a life there, but it was bad.
For
Um,
4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks in the hospital.
yeah, it was 3 or 4 weeks, and even after that, they said that the fever it was so high that I couldn't, like, it messed up with my sleep pattern. So like I couldn't go to
Mm.
sleep. And I didn't want to take medication because I didn't want to get dependent on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like we researched more like natural options, and we found some stuff that helped me at the beginning, and then um, talking to people was kind of like what helped me get through that.
Mm-hmm.
Because even when we moved to the US in July 2013, I was still kind of like, on that not sleeping pattern. And I can tell you, after a week of not sleeping, you think you're going crazy. Like I literally thought, like, yeah, I'm crazy. Like a normal person should be able to just go to sleep. I'm not sleeping.
Yeah.
And it was definitely affecting, other parts of my life too.
So you said so you got dengue, you were in Colombia, but then you moved to the States, and
Yep.
then were you how you just was it just you, or how can you explain that? How did where'd you go?
Yeah, so at that time, my family, we came all together. So my parents and my siblings,
Mm,
and we stayed with my aunt. But my parents, they had, somewhat decent jobs in Colombia, so they decided to go back. And
okay.
they gave us the option, to come, try it out, see if we like it, and then, it was up to us if we wanted to stay or go back to Colombia. Um, so I came and I stayed with my sister. Everybody else went back to Colombia. We stayed with my aunt and my uncle
Mm-hmm.
at their house, and they were really another big part of the support network that we had when we first moved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then after that, it was just a race against time because always being kind of like driven with my goals.
Mm-hmm.
I kept comparing myself to like my friends from high school in Colombia. We graduated in 2012, and it was like 20 at this point, it was like 2014. Most of them were already like halfway through their college careers, and I was
Mm.
here, about to start high school, because I had to go back to my senior year
You had to
because
go back?
yeah, so in Colombia it's only until 11th grade, and then here is 12th grade, so I had to like go back and do one more year. Um,
Yeah.
but then also that was good because it made me eligible for in-state tuition, so that was another big plus. So it was a good, a good trade-off, I could say.
Yeah, for sure.
And definitely that time in high school also helped me improve my English. Like I knew basics, like I knew how to read pretty well, but the conversation part was the hardest one because
Mm-hmm.
it was basically all theory from the public school that I went to in Colombia.
And what was it like there? The first few weeks, few months, like how were you? How were you feeling? Or were you happy? Were
uh,
you sad? Your parents went back, right? So you were
yeah,
basically
so
in a new country, didn't know English that well. You have your uncle, aunt, but did you even know them like that well, or you just kind of knew them from
um
stories, or what? You just knew that
yeah,
they were your
so
family.
at least from like my uncle's point of view, so they have been to Colombia a couple of times since
Mm,
they moved, so they also live here like over 25 years now.
okay.
So I have seen them a couple of times, but it wasn't like I was close to them or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But they were pretty welcoming and open to helping us with like not only like school stuff but anything that we needed. My sister and I, they became basically our parents here, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, school was hard. Like I said, I was still getting through the dengue stuff, like sleeping problems and, just in general, kind of like adjusting to the new environment. And then on top of that, the language, like the first couple of weeks, like I had no clue what they were telling me at school.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my U.S. history professor. She used to be like, so we're gonna do this, and that. And I'll just be like, yeah, okay. And then I would ask my friend. Like I got really close to a friend from Honduras. She had
Okay.
been here for like a couple of months, so she understood a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask her like, hey, what are we supposed to do, like in Spanish, so that I could do it.
Right.
But even then, the professors were really supportive, and my senior year was interesting. I had a lot of like required classes to graduate because
Mm-hmm.
the curriculum is not the same as in Colombia. So it was like U.S. government, American literature, a lot of those classes that you don't want to take your senior year.
Right.
But it was definitely good to get my English at a better level to prepare me for college. So that was the plus.
Okay.
And
So basically, you had to learn English really really fast, and
yeah, yeah. So like I took my basis that I had in Colombia, and I had a great ESOL teacher. She was
mm,
she would really like push me hard, and at times she was like, man, I don't want to do this homework, I don't want to read this book. But it
right.
was it was kind of like what got me through those first couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
And she was also very like direct when it came to helping me through my college search and
Right.
picking a career. So I owe a lot of what I have done so far to her, and we're still in touch, which is one of the great things that even though it was like my only year in high school, like we got so close that we're still friends on Facebook, and sometimes we get coffee together and things like that. And it's
Hmm.
always good to be able to show them how grateful you are for what they have done to
So
your life.
being in the US, did you how did you made a lot, you made friends, obviously you made connections, but did you ever still feel lonely, like because of the culture? No, it's, I imagine it was different. I mean, obviously you guys don't know, I've been in Colombia for a while now, so it's definitely a lot different than the US, especially from Atlanta. There's trees everywhere, you got to drive everywhere. Did you had to deal with any of that, or would you say you had always a good support system where you didn't feel?
There was definitely a good support system, but it's always it takes a little bit of adjusting. Like you said, especially we live in Douglasville, which is a small city, about 20 minutes from Atlanta. So that takes time to adjust because there's no the corner store like we call it in Colombia that you can just walk to. Um, the weather was another big thing. Like I saw snow for the first time, when we came here in 2014. I think that December snow pretty bad, but it was good for us because first time seeing snow.
Right.
But yeah, it took a minute to adjust, and also I would say that I kept close to what my roots in a sense.
Mm.
So like my whole life, my friends have been mostly my cousins, and then a couple of people outside of that circle. But through soccer, so I started playing in high school. I was able to make some connections, and they were really helpful, kind of like adjusting to the US, and just like going out with them would be like a new experience every time. Like I remember ordering
Hmm.
Subway the first time. I was like, I don't know how you say this. I would just point at things like, hey, I want this, and this. So those things that sometimes you're scared to do on your own and to just explore. It was good to have the support and the people around me that were kind of like hey, it's okay if you don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What kind of characteristic would you say is needed for that? Or yeah, just was it just you being open? I mean, like, I'm sure there's people that are moving to the States now, or maybe even that are from there, but they're just not as open, or maybe they do feel lonely. Like, what do you recommend? Because obviously you should, it's more. It would have been easier for you to be lonely than someone that grew up there. But I know a lot of people that are in the States and feel lonely, feel lost, feel like they don't know what to do in life. So what kind of advice could you give them, given your experience in a new country where it was way
Yeah.
easier for you to could have that you could have been you could have felt that way.
Yeah. I would say it's always been honest with yourself. That was like the first big thing for me. Like I figured like after a year of being here, I was like, okay, I like it here. I see the opportunities. Colombia is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be always home, but if you think like long term, you start making your decisions in your head, and you're kind of like, okay, this is what I want, and just setting that plan that then you need to act upon. So I decided that I was gonna stay here, and I was like, okay, if I want to stay here, what things do I need to do?
Yeah.
And I was said, like I want to go to college, so what do I need to do? I need to take the SAT. I need to take the ACT. What do I need to do for that? And then I would just ask people. So it's not only being open, but also not being scared.
Mm.
And you can imagine me going to the office in high school, asking to get a waiver for the SAT. Like I said that, and at the time I wasn't sure what I was asking for. I was like, a waiver, I don't know what that is, but they told me to say that. Um, so it was a big process, and luckily with the English that I had learned in Colombia, and I would say I was always a good kid, at least in school.
Mm.
So I
Okay.
did decent in both the ACT and the SAT. So I was able to apply to West Georgia and Georgia State, and I decided to go to Georgia State. So that was
Okay.
part of the process.
Cool. So actually, there's people probably, you guys watching probably don't know, but me and Bernardo worked together. I met him at this, like I mentioned, at Diaz Foods, which is like whole distributor, a Hispanic distributing company in Atlanta. And but the funny thing is that he wasn't always working in the same department. He was working in warehouse. Like I believe it was like part time, but you were working probably almost like full time hours. And were you in school at that moment? How did I know there's a lot of people that worked in the warehouse, and I'm just trying to figure out how did you, still new to the country, end up from going to the warehouse and ended up in the accounting department? of this Diaz Foods? Like, how does that happen? Like zero
Yeah.
connections. How did you get in there?
Um, so like even to begin with the job in the first place, I got it through a connection. So it was actually my ex mother-in-law. She
Okay.
was always really taking care of me. So she recommended me for the job. But at the time, the only position that they had was night shift at the warehouse, and it was
It was night shift.
yeah, it was night shift. So and that was
It,
in 2015. I started January
and
2015.
this is when you were in college.
Yeah, so I was that was my second semester. So that was yeah my second semester of my freshman year, and I mean, now thinking back at the time, it was more just like, I just have to do it. I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, and also now that I think back, like I never worked in Colombia. I was lucky enough that my parents, we just had to go to school and that was our job. That was all that was required from us. Besides, helping in the house and stuff.
right.
Um, but yeah, like coming to the US, he was like, okay, I need money for gas and I want a phone, so I need to pay my phone bill. I need a job,
Yeah, to
and
survive.
so I just started, like picking jobs here and there. Actually, my first job was at Wingit, which I still do some stuff for them now.
Wait. You
Um,
still wait? That was your first job, and you're saying that you still do that?
yeah, so I started there helping the manager, so it was kind of like a assistant in
Mm.
the front, just helping the customers when they came in and getting
And,
things ready.
and what is Wingit?
Wingate is a Mexican, it's a Mexican restaurant, and they have
Oh,
like
okay.
wings and American food as well.
Got it. Got it.
Um, but yes, I started there, and I got really close with the owner. She is Mexican, and I was able to kind of like just leverage that to arrange my college schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And then around that time, I got the night shift job, so I had to,
Two jobs.
yeah, I had to like manage the schedule a little bit. I had to, talk to them, and um, so I basically went to school twice a week only. I pick all my classes to go Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah.
That way I could work, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, half day. Um, and that's kind of how I did it for 2 years almost.
Mm.
And then at Diaz Foods, night shift, picking the orders and stuff. I remember one of the managers one time took a picture of me because I'm not that tall. I'm like 5'5",
Sure.
and one time I had to make like this huge pallet. It was probably like 7 feet tall. I don't think it was gonna fit in the truck. We had to like cut it down a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I came through to kind of like just wrap it around with the plastic paper. And he was like, "Wait, did you do that?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "How did you get that meat on top?" I was like, "Don't ask me, man. I just somehow I did it." And I remember him taking a picture of me next to the pallet because he was so high. It was ridiculous. Like you wouldn't believe that I actually was able to put that meat up there. Um, I wish I could have that picture, but yeah. So that was one of the stories in night shift, and I got really close with the managers. And when I started talking about, like I was going to college, and sometimes I would have to ask permission to leave early.
Mm-hmm.
So I would get out like at 3 or 4 a.m. to go home, kind of like sleep for like 2 or 3 hours, and then go to class at 9 a.m. Um, and they started like trying to help me, and then there was a opening in the accounting department, and that was when they were like, oh, you're going to school for accounting, so that should be good for you, and it's gonna be easier as far as like schedule, not working night shift.
Mm-hmm.
um
Was it intimidating at all?
at first, yes, because I didn't know their expectations. Like I mean, when you're talking, you're like, oh yeah, I go to school for accounting, but it was like my second semester, so I have no clue what I was doing. Yeah.
Not only that, but
And
a second semester, like probably like your first, second job
yeah,
in a new
second job.
country.
And then it's like this big company. I mean, for to be a family-owned business is pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then going into the accounting department, I was lucky enough that we had great coworkers, and Dulce, one of them, she was the one that trained me, and she definitely made it easier to kind of like get used to the work and basically learn my way around the firm. And yes, I was there for a year and a half. um, and that really boosted my resume when I was out there looking for internships and stuff like that, because I already had over a year of accounting experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that recruiters always told me like it was good to have. So definitely a great learning experience, but like also a great point in time in my life too.
So was this so when you saw the opportunity, was it more like oh, let me get it because it's gonna be good from resume, or like, oh, I need to survive, or was it like a, you just um I don't know, something that your parents taught you, like when you have opportunities you take them, like I'm sure like if you felt
Yeah, it
fear,
was a
but you
combination
still.
of things. Yeah, I would say definitely it was the night shift. I was trying to run away from it. I mean,
Yeah.
getting off work at 4 or 5 a.m. and then having to go to school. Like I remember missing some classes, and I would have to
Mm,
email the professors like, "Hey, I work night shift, and today I didn't even hear my alarm. Like, sorry, can I make up for this assignment? Like I know it's not an excuse, but could you please help me?" Um, so I noticed that it was starting to affect my education. So that's when I
mm-hmm,
like started to tell them more like, "Hey, like if there's an opportunity." And so when that came up, it was more like hey, I'm in, like I don't know what I'm gonna be doing, but I'm sure it's better than night shift having to go to school the next day in the morning. So um and then on top of that, I mean, at the time I wasn't really thinking about my resume, but I was thinking more in terms of the connections that I was making, just being,
network.
yeah, so just being in the accounting department, thinking about, I mean, I was going for accounting. um it was more about that, like meeting people that were involved in the field that I wanted to be in. And sometimes I would actually make up assignments to interview, like the CFO. I would say like, hey, I have this assignment for a class. I need to interview somebody, that's doing something that I would like to do. And I would just come up with questions because we had a class, and we did that. But
Hmm.
then, I thought, I was like, hey, why not, say that I still have this assignment and use it to, get to learn more from people. And people were really always really interested in helping, but also in showing what they do. Because when
Hmm.
people are passionate about what they do, they like to talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. So it seems like you're still. Would you say that knowing that you're going to do accounting has helped you and helped you like take these? It was easier to take on these opportunities. So you're like, hey, this makes sense, or was it just because you were just hungry and just wanted to keep moving up and per se?
Yeah, I would say it was a little bit of the second part. So moving up, because if you think about it, like my other jobs at the time, I was also working at Food Depot. In
Oh,
the
you were working at Food Depot as well.
Yeah, I was working at Food Depot on the weekends.
And
In
Food
the
Depot is like a grocery store, just for
Yeah,
people
the
that don't know.
grocery store. So I was working in the produce department, just putting out, fruit and vegetables and stuff like
Man,
that.
you're just hustling, man.
Um, I mean, I had to, my parents were in
Yeah.
Colombia, and I mean, they would try to help us, but like sending money from Colombia to here is not a great business
Mm.
specifically. Um,
Lose
and
money.
yeah, and we have bills here, and even though my uncle and aunt were honestly taking care of us as far as like food and housing, there was always like books and things that you want to buy and things that you
Mm.
need. And it's not like I always wanted like new clothes and stuff, but I always like to have my own money and not being dependent on somebody. So
Hmm. Yeah.
um and then on top of that, it was also, it was like the good time to do it, not responsibilities really. My sister, she's 3 years younger than me, so it was more
Mm.
just like taking care of her and making sure that she was okay, more like emotionally than financially.
Yeah.
So I was able to
It
take
sounds
care of
like
her.
you had to grow up really, really, really fast. You went.
Yeah, kind of forced to, because I couldn't show, like I was sad or I was missing my parents or missing Colombia, because that's what she was
Mm.
gonna see, and she was gonna, she was sad anyway. But if she saw that in me, like the person that she was looking up to, it was gonna be harder for her too. So
You had to be that rock.
yeah,
Did you
basically.
did you have any like people that motivated you, pushed you, like maybe like some, it doesn't have to be famous, but someone that you're like, "Ah, I want to be like that," or
Um,
or is that why you finished everything so quick? Because then after that, you were in accounting department at DS Foods, but then you got your bachelor's and then you got your master's and CPA, and then somehow you ended up with you interned at EY twice, yeah, and also at PwC, the two top, the big four, the two top firms in America, or the world actually, right? Yeah, so the big
yeah,
four.
the big four. Yep.
But yeah, what at that point? Why did you how did you do it so fast? Like, and how did you not lose that momentum, or what kept you going? Is it the same? Did you have like a why, a reason, or is just like
Um,
part of you? And then you started even doing more like entrepreneurial things later on, like, so yeah. What was that pushed you? Because there's a lot of people that want to do these things that you're like, oh man, like, hey, how did he get here? I've been living in Atlanta for, but I'm still struggling here with my bills, or I haven't finished school, or I finished school but I still haven't gotten the job I wanted. Like how can they do the same thing that you did? Like, and what are you doing different?
Yeah, so to that I would say kind of like started in Colombia. So I had an uncle that he was very like entrepreneurial, so he had like multiple businesses. Like one was in construction materials.
Mm,
He was also involved in like other businesses throughout the city. So I always saw that growing up, and then as I mentioned before, my parents also had the rental property. So it was always kind of like part of my life, and I think that was always, or it still is up today, my end goal, to be able to provide for my family and for myself, but
mm,
not from an employee side of things.
got it.
um, so everything has been in a way kind of means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And my timeline, everybody's in their own timeline, but I would say, I decided that I wanted to be able to enjoy life, but at the same time accomplishing the things that I want to. um, so that's what I was always really focusing, like in college, like taking my classes, and not only that, but making sure that I was like building my network with professors, with other classmates that they have more connections because they were living here in the
Right.
U.S. longer. um, so basically that's kind of like how I started building the network, and I would say that's has been really helpful to get me where I am today.
Network. Would you say how important would you say that's over skills?
Oof. I would say, like the saying goes, it's all about who you know. Because honestly, even one of the internships, not in the Big Four, but another firm that I got, it was merely because I knew somebody that we had a class together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they saw, how dedicated I was in school and stuff, and they kind of like refer me to the HR person. So
So would you say people skills is it's a skill that one needs to acquire, and it would
yeah,
help? Like if someone
yeah.
watching it, I want to do this. Would you say they need to get their people skills up?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's one of the hardest ones to get because it's not like you can take a class on it. I'm sure there's like theory behind it, but mostly it's just putting yourself out there and
And act
putting you.
and to add on to that, I struggled a lot back in the day. I studied sociology at Kennesaw State, and at that time I knew that if I studied that, I needed to definitely get my people skills up. So I started reading personal development books, body language books, and there's one in particular. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and that book was game changer. It changed my life completely. So I recommend that book.
Yeah, and to that, I would say, after you guys also, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations because
Mm.
that's when you get the most, and that's when you're actually learning. Um, I remember going to like recruiting events. The first time I went, I didn't even know who the big four accounting firms were, and I was, on the elevator to go to one of the recruiting events,
You were already there.
and I was already on my way. And because, well, my friend told me, she was like, "Hey, there's a recruiting event, you should go," but I didn't know, who was gonna be there, and that
Mm.
was my fault. I didn't do my homework as I should have. Luckily, this lady, she just gave me like a quick pitch in the elevator, and then just started talking about myself because they started asking questions, and I was like, yeah, so I came from Colombia. At the time, I would have been here like 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I came from Colombia 2 or 3 years ago, and they would be like, oh, awesome, like, what are you doing now? I was like, hey, I'm a sophomore, studying accounting, and I started meeting recruiters, and then you know one thing just led to another, and then next thing I knew, I had an internship, and I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay. And the good thing about these firms is, once you get an internship, that's getting your foot in the door, and it's kind of, you have to do really something bad to not be offered a full-time position because they really um, care about the professional, not only the employee. So they kind of
Hmm.
like take you. So I've been interning for EY since I was a junior in college, and now I'm a full-time employee. So they do really walk you through the whole process.
Okay. Wow. That's I don't know. Your story amazes me about how you did everything so quickly. And not only that, but you also don't you bought a home recently, and you also you have some properties in Colombia that you invested in, and also you also have like another property in Atlanta too, right? Aside from the house, were
Yeah,
you were you not ever like would you say that you have a good that you need to develop your risk tolerance in order to
uh,
do something like that, or like would it, or how do you think about these things? You know, like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. Like, you know, a lot of people are just scared to make moves, but it sounds like you just take action and action. And would you say that just you take action even though you might not know what happens, and you just do it and then just see what happens?
yeah, I would say half and half. For some things, I'm really risk averse. So you know, it's funny how when it comes to business, I'm more like open minded.
Um,
Um, but definitely, at least the house, it was a deal that I was able to work out with my cousin. So it was his house, and he was in the process of moving because of
mm,
his personal relationship and stuff. And you know, it was a great deal. I was actually to give him some down payment money to him basically, and just take over the mortgage. And with prices nowadays, you know, like I save over $30,000 by buying it from him instead of, you know, getting it from the actual market. So that was a great
yeah,
process.
and also to add on to that, not only did they get the house, but like the way that he hustled to do it, like he, you know, I remember that you reached out to me, hey, I need some money for the down payment. You know, that's a lot of people, when these opportunities come up, they just don't take them because they're like, oh, I don't have money. But you were barely finishing college and starting, you know, to work, so it wasn't like you had like a whole bunch of cash, you know. So would you say that, like, what, how, I feel like, is that, are you more like an entrepreneurial thing that you're just, you know, let me just get all this money, ask my family, my friends, and
Yeah,
everyone, like that's that it takes something out of you. I mean, it takes something a lot out of you to do that, you know, to put yourself out there like that.
yeah, so I actually, like you said, I started asking, you know, my close friends. I asked the restaurant owner, the one that I said I was close to. I asked
Mm,
her for some money. My ex mother-in-law, the same one that got me the job.
right.
We were always pretty close, even, you know, after the relationship with her daughter. She actually lent me $1,000. Um, so that's kind of like how I put the money together
That's a
for.
good ex mother-in-law to keep around.
Yeah, but yeah, it was always like I said, you know, the connection, you know, even before I reach out to her for the money, I would reach out, you know, generally, you know, like, hey, how's everything going, how's, you know,
Right.
work going, how's life and everything. So when it came time to ask, you know, I feel like that's why people sometimes don't do it, because they feel like I haven't talked to this person in a year, you
Mm,
know, and now I'm gonna reach out to them asking them for something. So that's what I would say. Even though it might take time, you always want to keep you know, keep up with people,
mm-hmm.
and not only thinking that, you know, one day you're gonna need them, which, you know, is totally fine. I mean, we all need help at some point.
Right.
But also because, you know, it's good to keep those people around you, especially the ones that are always looking out for you, and the ones that care about you and your life. um, so definitely would say, you know, keeping in touch with those individuals that are always ready to, you know, jump in whenever you need them. So
Cool. And what would you say that separates you from, let's say, another person that's either been in the States forever, you know, and seems to, you know, still haven't really like figured it out, you know, or struggling to get there, or maybe another immigrant that migrated to the States and but hasn't been able to, you know, finish school or go to school, you know, like what would you say is the biggest difference? Is it because they don't have the resources? Is it because they just, you know, they just can't, or what is it? Or
um,
why can't you?
I would say a lot has to do with the mindset.
Mm,
Personally, I've always tried to, you know, put my mind to something, and um, just break it down into steps. Kind of like,
right.
okay, like if, as I mentioned before, you know, like if I want to do this, what other things do I need to get before I can get to that point? Um, and I have applied that to, you know, everything in my life. College, you know, like if I want to go to Georgia State, I need X, Y, and Z. If I want to get my master's, I need to, you know, do this, and that. If I want to get my CPA, I need to study. And you know, it was like sacrificing the flexibility of traveling around and working for whatever you want to, you know, settle down so I could have a better studying schedule until I got my CPA. So there is a lot in the mindset, but also, you know, just having the power and the courage to, you know, sacrifice things whenever you have to accomplish those goals that you have. And it's understanding what you want to do,
Mm,
in, you know, in the long run, but also like in the short term. Because if you don't have clear goals, that's when people kind of like get stuck. And you know, I'm not perfect, like I've been there, you know. Sometimes, especially now after the CPA, it's kind of like I have all this free time, or I feel like I have a lot of free time, after
Right.
studying for the CPA. So it's kind of like, okay, what do I do now? So I'm trying to pick up my entrepreneurial side, which always
Mm.
kind of like excites me. So that's what I've been doing these past days, and always trying to do something to keep me motivated, because that's what life is all about.
So 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 you're doing some entrepreneur things. Obviously, you well, people don't know, but you also work. Been working in the private equity space a bit, and so learning how that works, and but you're also working on like the organization that you started. But what's your goal with these things? Or are you just trying different things and then seeing which one you like most and then sticking with that later? What is your end goal with that?
Yeah, so Arena Latina was more like a project. So it was actually one of my classes in college, when they
Mm-hmm.
make you kind of like think about a project, something that you would really like to do. And I took it really serious. So I actually went through the whole process. And, after I even finished the class, I mean, I got a good grade in the class. But I stayed in touch with the professor, and I was like, hey, we did this project, and, I really want to, you know, take it on and kind of like just go through with it. And that's when I decided that I was gonna go through, and I actually applied for like the LLC. So I registered for the company and everything. And at the time, it was kind of like vague what I wanted to do with it.
Right.
Um, I was kind of like following Tom's concept. So I wanted to be a business, but also wanted to have a really huge social piece of it.
You said Tom, right? Can you
Tom's,
explain?
yeah. So
Yeah, can
like
you
the
explain what
the
that is?
shoe company that started
Oh, okay.
donating shoes for every shoe that you
Ah,
bought. They
Tom.
would
Yeah, yeah,
donate
yeah.
shoes. Yeah.
Okay, okay, cool.
Um, and then so that's kind of like the idea behind Arena Latina, especially focusing on kids.
Mm,
And growing up in Colombia, even though I was lucky enough that my parents had, good jobs, and we weren't rich, but we had food on our table, thankfully. But I
yeah.
saw a lot of people that did not have those opportunities. So I want to make it about helping people, but also, promoting other people that can do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to get them started on their own journeys. So, like you mentioned, this December we actually have a toy and a school supply donation, and that was just something that I decided to take on this year. In the summer, I actually started on my job at EY. I just
Mm-hmm.
sent out an email to my close colleagues, telling them that I wanted to do this toy donation. That if it was going to be in Colombia for kids from small towns, and I actually got a lot of support. I was able to collect about $700 from not only coworkers, but family members and friends,
Mm-hmm.
and and then with that money, we just bought school supplies and toys that we're gonna be delivering. Um, and I was able to, plan it with friends and family in Colombia. So I was kind of like the heads of the operation here, but the people actually doing the work.
Yeah,
Um,
in Colombia.
were my friends and my aunts in Colombia, like going to the houses looking for, kids that actually need these
Mm-hmm.
school supplies. And, I told you to kind of like bring them some light to their life and see that, there are options out there. And the other
Mm-hmm.
piece that I want to add to it, hopefully next year, I'm working on getting scholarships
Mm.
for college in Colombia.
Okay.
And thankfully, with the exchange rate now being so good, it wouldn't take that much. So we're in the process of figuring out how we can do it for people to kind of like sponsor a kid in Colombia.
Got it.
So that's what we're working on now.
Okay. And then if people want to learn more about that, or maybe want to help, or donate some to kids in need, where can they find that?
Yeah, so I would say you can reach me at Bernardo M25 on Instagram or Bernardo Mendoza on Facebook, and just reach out to me. We have a Arena Latina profile on Instagram, but it's been kind of slow now because we have been so focused on the donation that
Mm-hmm.
we have been trying to do that.
Okay. So with all that said, for everyone that's listening and has been enjoying the story, what would you say to them? What would be the best piece of advice that you can give them? If you could just say it in one sentence, if you could sum up all that you've learned in 23 years and becoming an accountant, passing CPA, going to a new country, learning English, starting new ventures, investing in properties, what would you say to those? So you have people that are younger than you, that can probably learn a lot, and I'm sure there's even older people that can definitely learn from what you've experienced so far. So if you could sum it up in even a word or a sentence, however you like, what would that be?
Uh, I would say find your goal and find what is it that you really like doing. Some people call it passion. So you find whatever you're passionate about and just work towards that goal and break it down into pieces that you can actually work, one step at a time so that you don't feel overwhelmed. Because I feel like that's what stops people a lot of times. They just think about, all the things that they need to do and they don't get to it because they think it's too much or that they just can't do it. But when you break it down, you're able to take, small steps, and that's how you get places.
Do you know what your passion is?
Yes. So I have been, in the search for it lately, and I figured that is merging business, which, all about business, with helping. So that's what this organization that I'm working on, that's what is becoming, so we're, just trying to finalize that and,
Mm, okay.
bringing it to life.
All right, cool. So as to the last two questions, the first one, I'm gonna start with the first one. So, what is most one of the most difficult things that you've had to overcome, and what is your legacy that you want to leave?
Most difficult thing, definitely moving to the US, especially without my parents, and
Mm,
um, not only the language, but the cultural shock was was huge. And legacy, I just want to be known for being a go-getter
mm,
and making sure that whatever it is that I wanted to do, I was able to at least try it. Because it's not honest to say that I succeeded in everything that I've tried, because even with the CPA, I failed a test and I had to retake it. So definitely, trial and error, but at least trying it. I feel like that's the biggest part. Um, and that's what I want to be known for. That whatever I decided to take on, that I was always at least courage enough to take it, first try at it and see where it took me from there.
and I honestly, I think that's really the everyone. I feel like a lot of people want like some magic advice, but it's no, there's no magic to it. It's just really right mindset, action, and some passion, maybe some excitement, and doing it
Yes.
over and over again, failing and starting again.
Yep.
Well, Ron, thanks for being on the show, and it was great again. Well, Gary, great to listen to your story, and hopefully, when you become millionaire status, we'll have another episode on have you on the show.
All right, thank you for having me. Have a good one.
You too, man.